Alright, boys and girls, welcome to video lesson 1-3, our lesson on the distance formula and the midpoint formula. Don't be afraid to ever go back and look at our learning targets. So our learning targets for this lesson are right here. And again, you can always go back and look at your learning targets. Your learning targets are on the back of page 1 in your note packet behind the syllabus. Okay? Midpoint formula, distance formula. Yes. Okay, here is the distance formula, which I'm hoping maybe you remember from last year, and if not, we're going to go over it right now. Last thing I want you to do is memorize this formula, because it is kind of scary looking. So I'm going to show you where this formula comes from, because it's just the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, and this is the the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula, which again is also kind of scary looking to look at, but I'm going to show you where this one comes from as well. Okay, so let's start with the distance formula. Let's say I want to find the distance from this ordered pair right here, which is 1, 1, and this ordered pair right here, which is 5-4. Before I even look at the distance formula, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a dotted line right here and a dotted line right here, thus making a right triangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 spaces right there on the horizontal. I'm going to put a 4 right here. And I'm going to count the spaces on the vertical. 1, 2, 3. I have 3 spaces right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my Pythagorean theorem, and I'm going to figure out what this missing side is. So I know using the Pythagorean theorem that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So now the a could be the 4, so that's 4 squared. The b could be the 3, that's 3 squared, equals x squared, our missing side. 4 squared is 16. 3 squared is 9. That's equal to x squared. 16 plus 9 is 25. That's equal to x squared. So therefore, take the square root of both sides. X is going to equal the positive 5. So this x is equal to 5. I'll mark that right here in green. Whoop, there's 5. Now, looking at the distance formula, what I did here is I subtracted to get this distance of 4. So let me write this out here. Let me get my pointer. This distance right here was 4, and I can see I can also subtract my x's. The change in x's is 5 minus 1, which is 4. So I can write that in the distance formula. 5 minus 1, which of course is 4, plus the distance of my y. So the distance of my y's right here was 4 minus 1, which is 3, so I'm going to write that. So now you can see I have the square root of 5 minus 1, which is 4 squared, plus 4 minus 1, which is 3 squared. 4 squared plus 3 squared, again, is 16 plus 9. So the distance is equal to the square root of 25, which of course is 5. And so see, the distance formula, quite simply, is the horizontal change, the difference of the x's, plus the vertical change, the difference of the y's, this squared plus this squared, square root thereof, because it's the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, now I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. The midpoint of the line is from 1, 1 to 5, 4. And again, just looking at the graph, I could draw it in by hand, so I'll kind of do that right now. I'll do that in green. The midpoint is right about there in the middle of my segment. Okay, but without looking at my formula yet, I'm just going to look at what's going on here. I know that halfway in between the x's, so halfway in between 1 and 5 is going to be 3, but I can get that just by taking the average of 1 and 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add And we know that to find the average, we add, so 1 plus 5, and divide by 2, because I have two things. My x is equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. I'm going to do the same thing now with the y's. I want to find halfway in between 1 and 4. Halfway in between 1 and 4 is going to be the average of 1 and 4. So I'm going to get my marker again here. I'll do it in blue. Halfway in between the y's is going to be 1 plus 4 divided by 2, the average of 1 and 4, which is 5 halves, which of course is 2 and 1 half. So without looking at the midpoint formula at all I'm going to do is take the average of the x's and the average of the y's, which is going to be 3, comma 2.5. And sure enough, that looks like that's the point right there. Okay, let's find the distance from -6, comma 3 to 2, comma negative 3. Same idea once again. I'm going to draw. I'll do it in, I was going to do it in yellow, but sure. We'll try it in yellow. I'm going to draw a right triangle. And I'm going to count my spaces. So am I going to count my spaces? Going along the x's, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to write in 8 right there. Looking at my y's, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to write that in right there. Okay, so I now know it's going to be 6 squared, using the Pythagorean theorem. 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to, there's my missing sign, x squared. 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. That's equal to x squared. 36 plus 64 is 100. 100 equals x squared. X must equal 10. My missing side is 10. Now, let us find that without using let's just do this a little bit quicker if we can. Do we see that the difference of my x's is going to be -6 minus 2, which is -8. Well, if I still square that, I get 64. The difference of my y's is going to be 3. Oh, let me write that here. 3 minus -3. 3 minus minus 3 is 6. So that's 6 squared. So now, once again, I can see I have 64 plus 36, which is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. To find the midpoint of this segment, I could look. It's probably right about there. I'll draw that in if you want. I'll draw that in green. Boom, it's right about there. But again, I just want to find the average of the x's, and I want to find the average of the y's. To find the average of two numbers, we're going to add them and divide by 2. So the average of my x's is -6 plus 2. That's the average of my x's, -6 and 2. Okay, so -6 plus 2 divided by 2 is going to be -4 over 2, which of course is -2. I'm going to write that down here. That's my x. My y is going to be the average of the y's, 3 plus -3. And again, we can see our y's are 3 and -3. So the average of my y's divided by 2, or the sum of my y's, 3 plus -3 is equal to 0 divided by 2. Well, 0 divided by 2, of course, is 0. So it looks like I have -2, comma 0, which is the ordered pair that I have. Let me get my pointer. The ordered pair that I have right there. Okay, you guys look at this one right now. Why don't you go ahead and find the distance. Find the distance from -5, comma -3 to 7, comma 2. If it's helpful, draw in the right triangle, and count the spaces if you need to. And I am going to go get a cup of coffee and maybe listen to the theme song from 2001. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, you should have found that the distance was 13, so this distance right here is 13, and what I did is I drew a right triangle. I counted the x spaces, which was 12. I counted the y spaces, which was 5. So now I know it's going to be 12 squared plus 5 squared is equal to x squared. Okay, but I could also get this 12 and the 5 by subtracting the x's. So 7 minus negative 5, and again we can subtract we can subtract either way. So 7 minus negative 5 is 12. 2, the difference on my y's is my vertical. 2 minus minus 3, 2 minus negative 3 is 5. So I have 12 squared plus 5 squared. 12 squared is 144. 5 squared is 25. 144 plus 25 is 169. That of course equals, let me get an equal sign in there, equals x squared. So x equals the square root of 169, which is 13. Okay, go ahead and find the midpoint. Probably somewhere right around there. Find the midpoint of that segment. And I'm going to go reheat my coffee. I'm going to go make my coffee a little bit hotter. Got cold. Okay, you should have found your midpoint was 1 comma negative 1/2, which is right there. 1, x is 1, y is negative 1/2. And I get that just by taking the average of my x's. The average of my x's is negative 5 plus 7, all divided by 2, which of course is 2 over 2, which is 1. X is 1. My y coordinate is the average of my y's, which is negative 3 plus 2. Negative 3 plus 2. Negative 1 over 2, negative 1/2, and there's my y. Hot dog, hot diggity dog. Okay, you guys try this one. I got the ordered pair 2, 1 and the ordered pair 7, 11. If you need to draw a rough sketch, but why don't you go ahead and find both the midpoint and the distance between these two endpoints of a segment. Okay, you should have found that the distance was the square root of 125, and no, that's not in simplest form, but we're going to do a whole unit on simplifying radicals, so if you just leave your answer like that right now, that's fine. So x equals the square root of 125, and I got that by doing the difference of my x's. So this distance right here is going to be 5, because 7 minus 2 is 5. I'm going to get this vertical distance, which is 10, and I get that by doing 11 minus 1, which is 10. So 5 squared plus 10 squared is equal to this distance right here, x. Let me write that in. So this is my x. So 5 squared plus 10 squared is equal to 25 plus 100. So x equals the square root of 125, and that's my distance. The midpoint, which is going to be right about here, you should have had 9/2 or 4.5, comma 6. And I got that by taking the average of my x's. 2 plus 7 divided by 2 is 9/2 or 4.5. And the average of my y's is 1 plus 11 divided by 2, which is 12 divided by 2, which is 6. So my ordered pair is 4.5, comma 6. Okay, last thing, and then we're all done, and then we are D-O-N-E, done in Spanish. I just want you to know what a segment bisector is. Bisector means to cut in half. So bisect means to cut in half. Please just write that in your notes. Bisect means to cut in half, or into 2 equal pieces. So what that is saying here is that this line CD is a bisector of segment AB, because AE is congruent to EB. So if a line cuts a segment in half, the line bisects the segment. Alright, boys, girls, this is actually the very last one. If you want, first three people to email me the midpoint unordered pair of this segment right here, going from 2 comma 8 to negative 512, and email me the distance. If you email me both answers, first 3 people to do it will get a bonus point on your first quarter grade. All right, boys, girls, that's it. Have a great day, and we shall talk to you soon.